Anthony, it's not the end of the show.
Oh, man. My bad, Craig.
You ready to go already? We haven't even started yet.
I know.
Man, you quit like 5 minutes early yesterday.
I did, almost.
You were
But I made up for
checked
it.
out. And then today you're already playing the song we play at the end of the show, at the beginning of the show. I don't know what to make of this, sir.
I think I'm just ready for the weekend.
Oh, have you had an okay week? What's going on? Talk to your boy.
I've had a good week.
Okay.
I'm just looking forward to Broccoli City Fest this weekend, and yeah.
That should be fun. That should definitely be fun. I can't really argue with that. Yeah, man. Okay. I worry about you sometimes. 'Cause you give me reasons to worry about you sometimes. I'm irrationally excited right now. I've just reached a phase of adulthood where silly things make me happy, Anthony. So I'm gonna have you indulge me here for a second. But I've been trying to we need more space in our place. Like, we're actually looking to see if do we want to upgrade? Do we want to wait a year? And part of that is like, okay, well, it's expensive to move. It's expensive to pay for more space, all that kind of stuff. So I'm trying to find ways to like organize our house. Now, I should say that I am the messy one in the couple. So just to avoid any confusion or any, in case my wife is listening and she is driving, she had to pick someone up from the airport. So she's driving around and she's listening. This is not me saying like, my wife. No. God, if she kept the place in the way that was up to her standard, it would look far better. I don't know how she tolerates me in that particular regard. But I'm trying, and part of my like mental hang up is I just don't have the spaces for things sometimes, where it's like, I don't know where that thing goes, so I'm going to leave it in the middle of the floor like I'm a child. I don't know any better, just like won't even clean it up. So like we've accumulated more stuff, like shoes, because we both have nasty shoe habits. And so literally sitting right next to me right now, I need to move this way a little bit. So Anthony, you'll be able to see this. Friday, so doing the show from home. I have, oh my God, come on. We bought these shoe boxes that are stackable.
Yes, sir.
And so like next to me, it's neat against the wall. It's not like sloppy. It's not hoarderish at all. It looks actually organized and nice. We now have these shoe boxes for our shoes. That used to, we just like kind of tried to slide neatly somewhere, but they never stay that way because you pull one pair out, they knock another, you wear them, you wind up throwing them back because you're lazy. Like, no, we found places to put stuff. And I am irrationally excited right now because I found on Amazon the other day one of the great organizing finds I think I've ever found in my life. You know, because you see me set up the stream stuff every day at the office. Like, I got a lot of wires. Occupational hazard for someone that started DJing when he was 15 and then went into a career in radio, especially over the last 10, 12 years, because the technology has continued to evolve. So I got wires on wires on wires of various things and various equipment and speakers and boards, and you know, you wind up throwing away some stuff and then keeping something else. So there's just a lot of stuff. And so at my desk, there's wires everywhere. And some of them were but a lot of them were just stuff that was plugged in, right? But it's just underneath my desk was a wired mess. And what I found is a desk clamp power thing. So instead of all the power cords leading to the floor, this little thing, not little, it's this power strip clamps to my desk. So all the wires, like from my ring light, my laptop, the soundboard that I have, all this stuff then just goes underneath my desk to this power thing. No wires hanging, because I also found these little clips that are literally like little strips that go underneath my desk, and all the wires like attach into them. So it's like a wire organizer. So, like, if you were to take like a photo of underneath my desk from the floor, sure, it would look like chaos, but it's all organized. Actually, it wouldn't. It looks like a highway system. But all the cords are organized. There's nothing on the floor at my feet. I'm not going to accidentally unplug something like I do 78 times a day previously. And it brought a sense of happiness to me that is irrationally high considering how small that is in the grand scheme of life.
I think sometimes in life, you deserve to, treat yourself. And sometimes when you treat yourself, you surprise yourself. And I think you're surprised at how efficient and effective this new Amazon piece is going to be for you and your life moving forward.
Yeah, no, that's a good, part of it is like, you did a smart, good thing for yourself.
Yes, sir.
I like that. That's good perspective. That was very old and wise of you, Anthony. How
Thank
long
you,
have you been hanging around me? Sheesh.
Sometimes wise things don't come out of my mouth. Just like yesterday when I wanted to be a farmer and I was talking about agriculture. But we don't have to talk about that anymore.
That wasn't yesterday.
2 days ago.
That was like Tuesday.
But I said sometimes I don't say wise things. I prefaced it.
You did. I'm now wondering though, like, because every day that's set up in the office, and although I will say our great engineering staff is working on an alternate thing to make my life easier without having to set up all the stuff I currently set up. But I do wonder now, I'm like, what's the organizer version for the office that I could buy that could make everything cleaner and easier for the office? That would be sweet. Because that's a lot of wires and a lot. Because the other problem too with like in a radio studio is how many computers are sitting there? 3. And so you got keyboards and mouses and everything everywhere. It's chaos. I don't know if there's organizing that because like you can't clip a mouse. You need it to be able to move. That's the point of a mouse. Yeah, that one I might be stuck. I think if we had built that studio for me specifically, probably would have looked a little different. But I'm a team player, and that studio was not built for me. It was built for everyone, and I live there now. This studio, though, in my home, that's built for me, by me, for me. And now it's not wireless, but it is wire controlled. It really does look like a spaghetti junction of a highway system underneath my desk, though. It's hilarious. I'm going to have to send you a picture in the break. It's pretty funny. All right, here's what we got on the show today. Coming up next, I saw this on Twitter and thought it was a fascinating thought exercise. One of the guys from Sportico put out Cy Young's win record and said, is this the most unbreakable record in sports? I want to examine 2 things actually off of it because I think they're different. 1, what is the most unbreakable record in sports? 2, what's the most impressive record in sports? I think they're 2 different answers, but I want to take nominees. I want to chop it up. 301-230-0980. Let's have some fun with this over the next half hour. We got Clint Yates coming up later in the show. He's going to talk a little bit about the ESPN story and does he think Roger Goodell is in trouble? Richard Deitsch is going to join us to talk about the future of sports on television as ESPN ABC is undergoing some major changes. And then for the first time ever, Johnny Cakes Auville from the Junkies is going to join us coming up at 5 o'clock as we preview our Burgundy and Sold party next Thursday. All still to come, it's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app. 0980 is the phone number. 301-230-0980. What is the most unbreakable record in sports? And also, what is the most impressive record in sports? Because I think those are two different things. And I think with some of the calls that we already have lined up, like we'll get to this, but part of the problem is the games have so dramatically changed over time that some of the things we're going to talk about, it's like, yeah, that's unbreakable because there's just no way to do that in a modern NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, whatever it may be, that has more teams, more players, stiffer competition, better training, all that stuff. But let's get to some calls before I throw out some of my ideas. 301-230-0980 is the phone number. Let's start off with Dennis. Dennis, thanks for calling. You're on the Hoffman Show.
Craig, great talking to you. One of my favorite subjects to talk about is Wilt Chamberlain. Mm-hmm. Nobody's ever going to touch 50 points a game average in a season. And that's not necessarily the most impressive thing that he's ever done. Of course, he had the 100 points in a game. That may be eclipsed someday. Some people have gotten to 80, although I think Wilt's got about 10 games of 75. But he actually played every minute of every game in 1962 except for 8 minutes, and that's because he was hit with 2 technicals with 8 minutes left in the game. Other than that, he played every minute of every game in that year. Just remarkable.
Totally. Dennis, I appreciate the call.
I would like that.
Yeah. Go quickly. Go ahead.
I'd like to ask you this. Yeah, people sometimes disparage him and comparing him to Russell. He averaged 29 points a game against Russell head-to-head. Take a guess how many rebounds he averaged a game head-to-head against Bill Russell.
I'm going to guess it's probably similar to that 29 number.
It is. It's 29 and 29 that he averaged. Go look it up, as they used to say. Anyway, thank you, Craig.
Yeah, thanks, Dennis. So I'm glad you mentioned Wilt because he was definitely on my list. And to me, he's on the most unbreakable more than the most impressive. It is obviously tremendously impressive. And the 50 points per game came in 1961, 1962. And in that season, Anthony, I'm going to educate you on this, Anthony, in case you did not know. Wilt Chamberlain in that season averaged 48 and a half minutes a game. He played basically every minute of every game plus some overtimes. He averaged 48.5 minutes per game that season. It's incredible. And that alone is never going to be remotely close to matched again, I would think. And then obviously 50 points per game. Now, it is a much smaller league at the time. There are still elements of racial discrimination watering down the talent pool. Obviously, Wilt himself, one of the best black players, because he's simply one of the best players, period. But is the league as deep as it would be if there are teams saying, oh, we only have 1 or 2 black players? Of course not. So the top black players were playing, but a lot of the guys who would have taken, depth jobs outside of Red Auerbach Celtics would not have. I have watched a lot of Wilt Russell's stuff over the years and listened to a lot of interviews where I tend to think if Russell had wanted those numbers to be less, they could have against him. That not that Wilt wasn't great, but like Russell had a method to the madness, and he has talked about it and how he would, as a team with the Celtics, be able to bait Wilt into certain things and ultimately come out victorious in the end. So the domination in terms of statistics is unmatched. Wilt is one of the most statistically impressive athletes in the history of sports. And I think on the unbreakable stuff, his numbers are as safe as anybody's possibly could be. But for most impressive, it's hard when there was a guy who's considered better than you in kind of your era. And it's hard when your era was, like, part of the reason you're able to thoroughly dominate is because of the nature of your era, a smaller league, watered down depth, all that kind of stuff. So, and here's the other reason I'm glad you brought up Wilt. We will actually talk about Wilt again later in the show because Richard Deitsch from The Athletic, their media critic who's been around doing this stuff forever, says that the new Wilt documentary on Showtime is one of the best sports documentaries he's seen. It's the best sports documentary in his mind of 2023. So we will talk to Richard Deitsch about that coming up at 6:30. All right. Let's see who else we got. Let's go to Rob. Rob, thanks for calling. You are on the Hoffman Show.
Thanks for having me.
You got it.
Well, I was just calling to talk about the Eric Dickerson rushing record of 2105 and his rookie rushing record of 1800. The way the NFL played today and the way the running back is being treated, them records would never be broken.
So here's where I'm going to actually not vehemently disagree with you, Rob, but disagree with you. I think the league is cyclical. I think right now the league is not set up for this. However, the league is starting to shift back towards running the football, in part because all these pass-heavy schemes have led to smaller and smaller and faster and quicker defensive personnel. And offenses like what the Falcons are doing, what the Titans have done with Derrick Henry on down the list, are starting to realize, well, if we zig while they zag, we have a mismatch. And I think specifically Dickerson's rushing record could be in jeopardy because they now have the 17th game. Will someone break it with as good of an average? I'm not sure. And O.J. Simpson actually has the highest average in a single season ever. But I think it's safe for a while. I think it's going to be really hard. But I do think eventually someone will come back around and get that one in a way that some of the other records that seem timed out, like Wilt's, won't.
Yeah, you might be true with that, adding that one game. But I disagree a little bit because I think we've seen all the great running backs come behind them, and none of them never did it.
We'll see. Rob, thanks for calling. Let's go to Bob, who's actually got a similar one in D.C. Bob, thanks for calling. You're on the Hoffman Show.
Hey, yeah. So mine is, which I think is going to be forever stand, is Emmitt Smith's career rushing yards. I don't think the way they treat running backs now, I don't think anybody's going to come close to that.
It's an interesting one, and I got to admit, as obviously people are calling in, I have my computer in front of me, and I'm looking up to refresh on some of these numbers. But I didn't realize how far ahead Emmitt was. And, Bob, we're going to go ahead and let you go because you got some traffic noise behind you. But Emmitt is at 1835, 1,500 yards ahead of Walter Payton. Now, Barry Sanders was at 15,269, and he only played 9 years. I do think it's possible. Obviously, it's not going to be easy. But if Barry Sanders got that close in his short career, what happens if you get someone who's has a little bit more longevity? Now, you look at like Adrian Peterson, who seemingly played at a high level forever, and he's he's over 4,000 yards. No, sorry. He's slightly less than 4,000 yards behind. So it's going to take a very unique combination of longevity and excellence to get there. But I think it's possible. Because like Frank Gore was never close to the best back in football, although he was really good for a long time. He's actually the third all-time leading rusher in the history of the league. I don't even know if Frank Gore's going to make the Hall of Fame. So what happens if you get a guy who's 15-year career and has, the consistency of a Frank Gore, but also some higher excellent seasons in the middle where, maybe we're talking about both the things we just talked about, where someone breaks the rushing record and they run for 1,800 the next year and 1,900 the year after that. I think it's possible. I just wouldn't put as impressive as they are, I would not put those two rushing records in the same class as Wilt or some of the other ones that we haven't even mentioned yet. All right, we got time for one more now, and then we'll take some more calls after the break. 301-230-0980. Let's go to Charlie in College Park. Charlie, go ahead. You are on the Hoffman Show.
Hey, Craig. Good afternoon. I don't see how anybody can ever touch Cal Ripken's consecutive games record. I mean, he figured Lou Gehrig's was 2,130, which was unbelievable. Cal Ripken broke that by a long margin, and I think, look it up, I think he played every inning of every game until he broke that. That's the one I think won't be broken. If it is, that's remarkable. I mean, his thing, remember how people were waiting and everybody was staying with him to see if he would get closer when he got closer and closer. The other thing, the record that's, I think, really incredible, but may be broken, especially this year, there's that guy who's hitting close to 400. Ted Williams, 406 in 1941, I think it was.
Yeah.
If it was 1941, Ted Williams broke his elbow in the All-Star game. he crashed into a wall in 41 and broke his elbow and still hit 406. But the kicker is, I told your screener, on the last day of the season, he was hitting 399 point something. And when you round that off, it's 400.
Yep.
His manager, I think it was Joe Cronin, I'm not sure, gave him the option of sitting out that game so his batting average would be 400, and guaranteed. He chose to play. I think he went 6 for 8 and finished at 406. He didn't back down.
Yeah, I've heard that story before. Yeah, I've heard that story before, Charlie, and that's a great call, the 406. I'm glad you shared that for those who didn't. Appreciate the call.
Okay.
The Cal Ripken one was on my list. That is starts May 30th, 1982, and September 19th, 1998. I mean, I remember being a kid and like watching SportsCenter and the full wall-to-wall coverage of like, this is the night that Cal Ripken walked into his manager's office and said, like, I'll take the night off, Skip. Thanks for letting me play all these games. Yeah, we're good here at 26-32. I mean, not that many baseball players have 16-year careers, nevertheless play every single game. It's hard to just not get a knock. I mean, guys get nights off now at a higher rate. It's hard to be deserving of being in the lineup that many nights in a row. It's a brutal sport because of how much it wears and tears on the body over the course of the season. And for him to do that, I mean, I think it's worth pointing out, it's 502 games more than Gehrig at 2130. And Gehrig is over 800 games, or about 800 games, over the next guy. So you're talking about 6.5, 7 seasons. Maybe not that much. 5.5, 6 seasons worth between Everett Scott and Lou Gehrig, and then another 4 seasons to Cal Ripken. That's one that is both on the impressiveness and the remarkableness, because every baseball player in the history of the sport has had the chance to do it. Guys play every day all the time, and they have multiple seasons and yada, yada, yada. I don't think that one's getting touched. I think we could play baseball another 100 years and nobody's getting. That's what they said about Gehrig, but I don't think with the way sports science works now, because it's not optimal. But Cal was a tank, and so I think that allowed him to he was built different and at a different time, and it was the perfect combination of time and place. All right, we got some more calls. I haven't even gotten to my list yet. 301-230-0980. Both the most impressive and the most unbreakable records in sports. This is a fun conversation. We continue it next here on The Hoffman Show.
This is DC's home for...
It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. You can follow us on Twitter at Craig Hoffman, on Threads at Craig_Hoffman. We're also at the Team 980 in both places. Streaming live on YouTube, youtube.com/at the Team 980. All right, Anthony, we didn't get a chance. We had so many calls last segment before we could even dive in, which is awesome. Love talking to you guys. Fun, especially on something as trivial, I would say, and as fun as what the most unbreakable records in sports are. But Anthony, what to you is the champ of both most impressive and most unbreakable?
So I'm going to go with Bill Russell's number of titles.
Okay.
I think it's impressive because he has so many he was able to win, and his team was just able to be so dominant. And then I think it's unbreakable because I just don't think any team will have as long of a dynasty as they did in the early 60s. And
I think that is probably the most unbreakable, or one, like from a team success standpoint, that is the most unbreakable record. And remember, this is not to take away from Russell, but it's an 8-team league at the time.
Yep.
For when, at least when they started, they might have been up to 10 or 12 by the end. But like, imagine if you just had to win the Eastern Conference. Like, yeah, LeBron would have gotten 11 probably. I mean, LeBron did get, if you want to put it that way,
he won 8 straight.
Yeah, he did.
But still, he didn't get 10 or 11.
No, that's true. That's true. But he did get, he had 07 plus 8 straight. That's 9.
Yep.
He won, obviously, with the Lakers. That's 10. So if he were to make one more NBA final, if you want to do it that way, like,
it's still close, but close ain't good enough.
That's actually insane. Like, in some ways, LeBron making 10 NBA finals in 20 seasons, considering the depth of the league.
Yeah.
Like, I know we like to see how many he won, but like, holy crap, man, that's incredible.
Yep.
I mean, in the same way that Jordan makes 6 in the 90s and he sits out for 2 years, it's like,
could have been 7, could have been 8.
Yeah, well, and then he retires. So it's like every year they played in the 90s, he made the finals. And except for, I guess, 94. Yeah, 94, 95. He was back for the full season.
Yeah.
But like, you know, how many Patrick Ewings and Allen Iversons are in his wake where they would have gotten to play for a championship if not for him? Jalen Rose, Mark Jackson, Reggie Miller, obviously that group in Indiana. How many times did they lose to Chicago in the playoffs? Like, so there's those kinds of things. With Russell, though, I think what you see is how hard it is to repeat. And that way, no matter how small the competition is, it's just remarkable that they were able to never get that disease of more. And part of that is probably the system. There's no free agency and stuff at the time. Like, you played for a different reason. The money motivation was different. Like, you played to win. And they had a team that was going to win. And Red Auerbach and the way he ran it, and Russell and his leadership, remarkably impressive. For me, the most unbreakable is, I actually think that I think there's a couple. Like, Ripken for sure is up there. But I actually think that the initial one that I saw was Cy Young's 511 career wins.
Yeah,
that's almost 100 more than anybody else. And it's like, you just don't do that anymore. When was the last time a guy got his 300th win? I can't even remember.
I can't either. And usually they make a big deal of those things.
Yeah. Lev Akabis, by the way, is the person who initially put this out. So Cy Young, 511 wins. Walter Johnson, by the way, 417. And someone just tweeted me, he had 110 career shutouts.
Dang.
Yeah. Like, but
Cy Young or
Walter Johnson.
Oh,
but like every single pitcher that's on this list, like the greatest win total for someone that finished their career after 1962 is Greg Maddux at 355. But like Cy Young, Walter Johnson, Grover Cleveland Alexander, Christy Mathewson, and Pud Galvin, your top 5, the latest career finish was Grover Cleveland Alexander in 1924. Then you got Warren Spahn, who won 363 and finished in 1961. Old Kid Nichols, what a name, 361, finished in 1900. And then you got Maddox and Clemens at 355 and 354, who finished in the early 2000s. Other guys who finished in the 2000s are Randy Johnson and Tom Glavine with 303 and 305, respectively.
I was thinking Randy Johnson. I just couldn't think of his last name. I know it was Randy, though.
Big, tall Randy Johnson.
Yes, sir. Apparently he's a photographer now.
He is. He photographs NFL games.
Yeah.
Which is a wacky bit. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So I think that one is completely and wholly untouchable. Like, there's just no way I see. And the only way I could see someone touching that is if, because the game has changed, they change the rules to where to get a pitcher win, you don't have to throw 5 innings or something like that. But these guys used to pitch like every day, every third day, every second day. Like, if you're pitching every 5 days, even if you're awesome and go 5+ innings and get a decision, like, that's 30 wins a season for 10 seasons to get to 300. That's how untouchable that is.
Yeah.
This is not going to happen. 35 wins a year for 15 years, basically.
Ain't happening.
No. So that to me is like the most unbreakable. To me, the 2 most impressive that I immediately thought of are Wayne Gretzky's points record in the NHL and basically all of Jerry Rice's receiving records, but specifically yards and touchdowns. So Gretzky has more assists than anyone else has points. And Gretzky also is the all-time leader in goals for right now, unless Ovi catches him in the next couple of years. So if Wayne Gretzky just assisted on every goal he ever assisted on and never scored a goal, he would have more points than any NHL player ever combined goals and assists. That is bananas. Because he did it also in a modern era. Like, there's no wacky rule changes. There's no nothing. He did it in the modern era. Like, goaltenders were wearing pads and everything. And that's what that dude did. And then for Rice, his level of dominance might even be more impressive because he did not play in a pass-friendly era. Now, he played with a pass-friendly coach who was one of the most innovative offensive minds in the history of the sport. He played with Montana and Young at quarterback. But don't you think that maybe the fact that he was the best wide receiver ever had something to do with it? He played with back-to-back Hall of Fame quarterbacks? I'm going to say yeah. So Jerry Rice has, like, Randy Moss is second in touchdowns, for instance. He's got 80% of the production that Jerry Rice did, 197 to 153. And then Rice, if you cancel out 3 or 4 1,000-yard seasons and just take the first 12 years of his career in which he played 19, he would still be top 5 all-time in receiving yards. You just take off 7 years.
Outlandish. How many yards does he have?
He has, I don't have that up right now. Let's see, receiving yards. He has 22,895. Larry Fitzgerald is second with 17,492. So he's got 5,000, 5,000 yards on the next guy. And actually, the last one I didn't even look up yet is receptions. Jerry Rice. Fitzgerald's actually kind of close on that one. 1,549. Of the 3, and that's 117 more than Fitzgerald. So if Fitz had played one more season and they had forced him the ball, maybe. 2 more years, definitely. And he played 16, so that's pushing it, but it's not unthinkable. So I think with guys like Travis Kelce, who get 115 yard or receptions, but you still have to play for like 20 years, man. I don't know. That's tough.
All right, what about?
But I think of the three of receptions, yards, touchdowns, I think the receptions one is the most gettable.
The touchdowns?
Touchdowns, no one's touching.
I think, I would say the yards. I think Justin Jefferson, just looking at what he's done in 3 years, he almost had 5,000 yards, Craig, in 3 years.
Yeah, but he's got to play for like 15 to get to Rice.
Yeah, I mean, if he stays on track with what he's doing now, his
Would you
production.
say he's got 5,000?
He has 4,825, so it's about 5.
4,825 or divided by 3. So that's averaging 1,600 a year, and he's got it. So if he does that for 12 seasons,
you can catch him.
He would. Okay, I hear you. Maybe
it's easier said than done, but I'm just saying, if there was a guy, to do
with the modern NFL,
exactly in the modern NFL, where it's 17 games and not 16, and probably when Jerry played, how many games was it? It still was 16. But,
that's another thing. Football records, I feel like, are more touchable because of that. Our guy Teresh also sent one over that I think is fantastic. By the way, Cy Young also 749 complete games. Ricky Henderson, 1,406 stolen bases. But this is probably my favorite because I was thinking about individual sports. Do you know who has actually, the top 800-meter freestyle times of all time on the women's side is Katie Ledecky.
Yep.
How many of the top times does she have? Like before you get to someone who's been close, how many Katie Ledecky times do you have to surpass?
Like 6.
Not even close, bro.
Oh, my gosh.
23. She has the top 23 times of all time. I don't know when this graphic is, but I'm guessing it's fairly up to date. Ledecky's all-time record is 8:04.79. So 8 minutes, 4 seconds, 79 hundredths. So 8:04 is the number you need in your head. Her 23rd best time is 8:13.
9 seconds.
So she's got a 9-second gap on herself to everyone else. I think Sydney McLaughlin-Levroni's 400-meter hurdles is going to be safe for a while as well, but I don't think anyone's touching Ledecky for decades, which is crazy in an individual sport where times come down all the time.
Oh, my gosh. 9 seconds is actually a lot of time.
Wild. People are starting to catch her at some of the other distances. Like the 15, I think someone's beaten her recently. The 8, she's untouchable.
Yeah.
Untouchable. Any more you want to add on?
No, I don't have any more.
All right.
have any more.
That's a good list. That was fun. I think someone just sent me an email on it. That's how much feedback we're getting on this. Oh, yeah, that's a good one. Pete Maravich averaging 44-plus points per year over 3 seasons while at LSU. No three-pointers.
Yeah.
Averaged 44 a game. He's the NCAA's all-time leading scorer, and he wasn't allowed to play as a freshman.
I think that's safe.
I think
more
that's
than safe, actually.
Yeah, I think that one's a very, very, very safe, especially considering, again, like the sport changes. Yeah, no one's staying that long now.
You average 40 your freshman year, you're out. Yeah, you're gone.
People are gonna be like, why were you even in college in the first place? All right, that was fun. Enjoyed that. We should do stuff like that more often, especially in the middle of the summer. Oh, that was kind of our plan for a lot of the week, and then news broke. So what do you do? Coming up next here on the Hoffman Show, I believe it's time for our weekend preview, isn't it, Ant?
Yes, sir.
All right, we will do our weekend preview next here on the Team 980.
You can take the.
I just grabbed.
Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We're actually going to do weekend preview a little bit later in the show because, Anthony, I just saw another good tweet that got me thinking because I feel like this is a much more fun question for you than it is for me. But someone tweeted, who is the best athlete that went to your high school? I mean, for you.
That went to my high school?
Yeah.
We've had our fair share. We had Roy Hibbert.
Yeah.
We've had.
That's actually the second time I've heard of Roy Hibbert today. I hadn't thought about giving any thought to Roy Hibbert in a long time. All due respect to Roy, was an excellent player, but he. I was listening to Lowe's pod, and he had Larry Nance on, which by the way was a phenomenal chat. Larry Nance Jr., really smart guy. I'd never heard an interview with him before. He's going to be a GM in the future in the NBA. Like, would put money on it. But he said that Roy Hibbert was his vet when he came into the league. So you got Roy Hibbert.
And then.
For those that somehow don't know, Anthony went to Georgetown Prep. So
yeah, best athlete, I would probably say probably Roy. And we've had some famous people come out of Georgetown Prep.
I say you guys. I guess you do probably have more non-athlete famous alums.
We got a lot of non-athletes. One, so you know the owner of Under Armour, Plank.
Yeah, Kevin Plank.
He went to Prep, but he ended up getting put out. So he didn't graduate from Prep, but he attended Prep.
He's still an alum.
Yeah. Al Galdi went there. There's a guy that
Al might be listening right now going, why did you just mention me in the same as Kevin Plank?
He is a famous guy. Who's the guy from the Falcons?
Arthur Blank?
I don't know if it's Blank. It's someone.
Well, there's Bidwell from the Cardinals.
Nah, not Bidwell.
Well, he did go there because his name, or no, his dad's name. Michael's the current one. I think Bill is his dad. His name's on the stadium at Georgetown Prep.
Yeah, there's Bidwell out there. But there's somebody else from the Falcons that also went to I'm blanking on who it is, but yeah.
Like a coach or executive or someone?
An executive. I want to say
Thomas Dimitrov?
Nope. Let me see.
Falcons not Kyle Smith.
Nope.
Come on, Ant.
You're
Mr.
trying.
Georgetown Prep. They're going to fire you for this.
Yeah, I really can't find him. No, not McKay.
All right. Well, while you're looking that up, I went to Riverside High School in Greer, South Carolina. We have a couple. We put out Brandon Bennett played in the NFL. Tremaine Stevens played in the NFL. For me, my generation, one of my best friends growing up was a guy named Michael Roth. And Mike played for South Carolina in the College World Series with like Jackie Bradley Jr. and all them, and is one of the best pitchers in the history of the College World Series. He wound up being kind of a 4A major league player where he was pretty good in AAA in the minors, never quite made it successfully to do anything in the bigs, but he would get called up every once in a while. Had a couple of good outings for sure. Had some seasons where he spent more time in the bigs than the minors, but as a college baseball player, he was incredible. And he was like my best friend in elementary school, and we were, still friends through high school and the whole deal. So Michael's definitely on the list. And then currently, I think the correct answer for me is Kaylee Kurtz, who is currently a center back for the North Carolina Courage in the NWSL. Kaylee was actually there with my sister. My sister played JV soccer. Kaylee did not have to play on the JV, from what I understand, from what my sister's told me. She went straight to varsity.
Must be nice.
Yeah.
Must be nice.
Yeah. So I think that's it. I don't know. I don't know how far you got to go down the list to get to me. I don't know how many other people had radio shows or TV shows. I got a radio show. What's up? Put me on the Wikipedia page. Riverside High School. Did you figure out who you were thinking of?
I did not, but also I did think of Denny McCarthy. He plays on the PGA Tour.
Okay. We have Bill Haas, who's a golfer. Jay Haas was his dad. Both PGA Tour golfers. Very nice house. Used to drive by it all the time.
We've had some guys. Oh, I forgot one. Anthony Hayner the third.
Oh yeah. How many guys are producing radio shows?
Not many. Hey, look, I'm one of one.
One of one. That's what we say around here. You know who else is 1 of 1? Well, he's also 1 of 4, but Cakes, he's 1 of 1. The Junkies, there's 4 of them. Cake's going to join us next, talking about the upcoming sale and our Burgundy and Sold party. Make sure you come hang out with us next Thursday. And in the meantime, keep on listening right here. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, streaming live on YouTube, youtube.com/@the-team980, and always live on the free Odyssey app.
The Team 980.
Yates will join us coming up in just a little bit, talking about the ESPN story that his colleague Don Van Natta dropped and whether or not he thinks that Roger Goodell can be in any kind of trouble. Also, Anthony, I don't know if I told you this, but Clint's going to help us finalize our fine system. So we have important business and we have business to get to. You can decide which one's which, but we have that coming at 5:30.
Have I still been fined $5 for yesterday?
Yes, you have.
Okay, just making sure. I just had to.
Yeah, no, the whiteboard will not come in clean. It will come in with $5 under your name. And depending on how the rest of the show goes, we'll see how many I rack up under mine. Time now, though, for Not My Beat. And our main story today is that we are having a party.
Today's top story.
Yeah, that's right. Thursday, doors open at 4:30 at the Bullpen down in Navy Yard. I'll be there broadcasting live and be joined by all kinds of folks, including Johnny Cakes Auville and his mates from the Sports Junkies. Cakes joins us now. Cakes, what's up, buddy? Welcome to the show. How are we doing this for the first time?
I don't know. This is I'm happy to be on. Thank you for having Anthony reach out to me. It sounds like he's already in arrears on I'm not sure what the whiteboard fine is for, but it sounds like he's $5 in the hole, and he's about to go further into fine bill. So hopefully he's making some extra cash there at the Team 980 because it sounds like he can use it.
Yeah, so the basic premise is like you cough into a microphone, you don't edit a soundbite correctly, which both of us do like a lot of editing, and both of us could definitely cough into a microphone. Like Anthony somehow coughs into microphones all the time, like he hasn't worked in radio for a long time at this point. But like you do stuff like that where the show just is unprofessional for a moment. That costs you money. And then eventually we're just going to buy ourselves lunch with the money. So that it's not, or maybe we should donate it to charity. No, we're going to buy ourselves lunch. And the
That's
whiteboard
cool.
just keeps track.
Everybody at the station wins that way.
Yeah. So, well, we're not buying lunch for anyone else. Like it's just,
Right.
You know, am I paying $40 and Anthony's paying 10, or is it the other way around depending on how the fines went? So that's
Gotcha.
that's how that's going to go. So Cakes, I'm gonna put you in a time machine here, right?
Okay.
The year is 2012. Robert's
All right.
running all over the place, and I tell you, in 11 years, in 2023, you are going to be the morning show host along with the rest of the junks, not just on 106.7 The Fan, but here on the Team 980. And then you guys are gonna help us throw a party for Dan Snyder selling the football team. What part of that is most unbelievable to you?
Well, first of all, I would have said you had a weird, faulty time machine that didn't work quite correctly. But yeah, I mean the prospect of Dan Snyder selling the team 11 years after that amazing run, that 1-year run with Robert Griffin III, was unfathomable. I think I was along the same line of thinking as most Commanders / Redskins, Washington football team fans that we were going to be stuck with Dan Snyder in perpetuity, that he was going to own this team until his passing. Because who in their right mind sells an NFL team? These are crown jewels, and we've seen the franchise valuation skyrocketing to crazy levels. So yeah, I would have said you're a crazy person if you told me that Dan Snyder was going to part with this asset in the year 2023. But I'm happy he's doing so, because it's a joyous time for anybody who's ever rooted for this team, for the people that have obviously fled this team in droves over the last decade plus. I mean, you've obviously seen, like we have, the stands at FedEx Field, how empty they've become. So, yeah, I would have thought you were crazy by telling me that, but I'm very happy that we'll be celebrating Dan's departure in just a few short days at the Bullpen.
Yeah, I can't wait to be out there. It's going to be fun watching the release of the fans. I mean, I remember coming in very sleep deprived to your show the morning after the Caps won the Stanley Cup, but also the night before, vividly, probably the most memorable night of my career, covering what it was like outside of Capital One Arena. And I was walking around with AWOD, and AWOD was in cameraman mode, and literally having a grown man cry on camera as we were interviewing him. What do you think the release of emotion will be on Thursday when the announcement comes down that it's official? Because this thing's been going in slow motion for so long. It's not that instantaneous pop of winning a championship, but in some ways it's also so much bigger.
Yeah, I just think it's going to be a huge catharsis for everybody that's supported this team, people that no longer support the team, people that have been on the fence because they've been driven away by just how bad not only an owner that Dan Snyder is, but just how bad of a human being he is. You know, like his rot has infected that entire franchise, the workplace, obviously. I mean, I know that you and we're going to be relieved just that hopefully with Josh Harris taking over that we're just talking about football, like when it's not football season, that we're not talking about scandals and cheerleader shoots gone awry and lawsuits and just the endless cascade of issues and dysfunction and black cloud that hung over Dan Snyder in his 2+ decades of ownership of this franchise. I mean, good riddance. I'm glad personally that he bought a mansion over in England and he'll be sailing on his yacht over in the Mediterranean. Like, he's been so shamed and humiliated that he's not even leaving just DC. He's leaving the country once he sells the Commanders. And good riddance. Like, nobody's going to miss him. It's a net positive for everybody involved that he's leaving.
Yeah, I will say London's a lovely place. I wish he had to go somewhere different. London's so great.
Well, he's downgrading it by moving there, but it's a net win for the United States that he's moving to London, and we no longer have to deal with Dan Snyder.
So, sorry to the English. We'll send better next time.
Right.
Johnny Cakes Auville with us, of course, co-host of the Sports Junkies each and every morning here on the Team 980, as well as all the other places that their show is simulcast. If I named them all, the segment would be over. So, you've obviously been doing this for 27 years now. So you actually have been going longer than that. That was my other part of that hypothetical, by the way. One, what was more disbelief that Dan would be selling, you would be on 980, or that you guys would still be doing this 27 years in, back in 2012. But, what point in that 27 years of doing this do you remember first having like a real bad feeling about Dan Snyder?
Ooh, first real bad feeling about him. That's a great question. Probably when he just started loading up on all of, like when he started treating the Redskins like they were his own personal fantasy team. And, he's lavishing guys like Deion Sanders and Bruce Smith and, guys that were clearly, in the twilight of their careers and, assembling like a fantasy football all-star team instead of letting a real football professional assemble the team for him. I think that was something that he obviously struggled with for years, was ceding that power and control of, running the team and helping to pick the players and realizing, hey, I'm not really qualified for this. I made a lot of money in business, a different business than the NFL. Maybe I should let people that actually know personnel and this business run this business and run it successfully instead of ruining one of the crown jewel franchises of the league, which is what he ultimately did in his 2+ decades here.
There's so many theories floating around of why Goodell and the other owners didn't step in sooner and get rid of him, considering he did exactly what you just described, ruin a crown jewel franchise. Do you have a theory of the case or a conspiracy or a set of facts that you particularly like that makes sense to you?
The only thing I can think of why Goodell may have protected him to such great lengths is that he must have some sort of dirt on, more dirt on Goodell that we don't know about, that Goodell was just terrified to push him out the door without the support of the rest of the owners. And I think he might have just worried that, that Dan Snyder was not going to go quietly into the night, that he would go, conduct a scorched earth campaign, try to burn down the entire NFL on his way out. So I think that's probably why Goodell was like, look, I know this guy's bad for the league. He's a terrible owner. We'd be better off without him. He's costing us money by the fact that he's leaving the franchise and not supporting his product here in the DC metro area. But I think he might have had some dirt on Goodell that Goodell did not want uncovered. So I guess it just reached a breaking point, and Goodell had to do it eventually. But I think he was probably scared of Dan Snyder and his litigious ways.
Yeah, that's one of the theories that I think I give some credence to, is there's got to be something. I don't know how bad it is. Like, is it just minorly embarrassing and annoying for Goodell, or is it actually bad? I don't know, but it certainly would explain the behavior. What for you is, this is obviously a question we'll be asking a lot of our listeners on both shows coming up this week, but like if you were to give Josh Harris the to-do list, what's the top thing or top 2 or 3 things on it for when he takes over?
Topic number 1, issue number 1 for me, change the name again. I know that people have fatigue with the name change, and I understand that. Okay, they had a name that was obviously controversial and had to go away. I understand that, but nobody likes Commanders. It doesn't make any sense. Nobody's in love with that name. And if you pay $6.05 billion for a new NFL franchise, why would you not put your own imprint on it? Why would you not brand it the way you want to? Why would you not start fresh? Because to me, Commanders just has Dan Snyder stench and a taint to it. So that would be, I believe there's a rule where once the name is changed, you have to wait. I think it's 4 years.
I think it's 5, but it's 4 or 5, something like that. 5,
okay. But I would announce to the fans, we're changing the name. As soon as we can change this awful name, we're changing the name.
So here's, I'll just interject real quick and let you get back to your list. Yep. Here's what I would do with the name, because here's the more I've thought about this, there's no such thing as a good name. Do I think Commanders is particularly bad because you can't shorten it? Yes. But I would, the goodness of a name comes with nostalgia and like good memories. Right. And if they go win the next 3 years, people will like Commanders because they will associate it with winning. But you have 2027 to 2030, somewhere in there, you're opening a new stadium. If you have been mediocre by then, I would change it then. New stadium, new name then, but give it a chance and potentially save yourself a couple $100 million of another rebrand.
Yeah, that makes sense. If you want to kick the can down the road and name it later, that's fine.
Especially because you can't do it now, right?
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah, you can't. Right. Okay, but if you want something immediate, I would fire Ron Rivera. Ron Rivera is not special unless he has Cam Newton as his quarterback, and he's proven that since he's been here, he can't get quarterback right. Everything he's tried has blown up in his face, and now he's down to rolling the dice with Sam Howell in what will be, and I'm convinced, will be his last year here in Washington. I don't think there's any way he survives into a new ownership regime. So if I were Josh Harris, I know that it's a radical thing to do.
A week before training camp?
I would fire Ron Rivera, and I would hand the keys to Eric Bieniemy, and I would say, "This is your shot, my friend. Here's your audition. It's your one-year audition." That's what I would do. But that's probably why I'm not a multi-billionaire that's about to buy an NFL franchise, Craig. Because I would make horrible decisions like that.
That's
what I would do.
I do love you describing your grand idea as a horrible decision, as you describe it. I do think it like with Bieniemy in place and with all of the stuff that Ron has Eric doing, I do think it would work better than it would in other situations where you don't have an automatic number 2 who's ready to be a head coach. Right. But like having been on the beat, man, that would be bad. And also here, like in a way, I think we are, not a year, but like postseason, we're a season away from a pretty interesting dynamic that kind of played out here a couple years ago with McVay. Everyone always yells about, well, how did they let McVay out of the building? How did they not know? And what I tell them is the very unsatisfactory truth that they did know, and there's not a damn thing they could do about it because Sean and Jay were best friends, and they couldn't fire the guy's best friend to hire the guy that wanted to leave. Like, Sean would have had none of that. And so considering Bieniemy is like kind of getting this shot from Rivera, like Ron and Eric are not close like Sean and Jay were close, and their families don't have long histories and all that kind of stuff. But I do wonder if after the season they have like another 9-win season and they want to move on to Bieniemy, if there's any kind of human level, personnel conversation that has to happen where they go to Eric and be like, look, we kind of want to fire Ron and hire you. And Eric is like, not like, don't fire my boss to hire me. Or is he like, oh, this is my chance. All right, let's do it.
Oh, I think it would be the latter because
I tend to as well.
Because I think Bieniemy he obviously feels like he's been passed over and slighted at every turn. And I just don't think that if he is given that sort of opportunity, I just don't feel like in his heart of hearts that he would be able to turn it down, because if he turns it down, he might never get an opportunity like that again. So I think if it came down to sacrificing Ron, and what are we really sacrificing? I mean, look at Ron's overall record.
Oh, yeah.
Ron,
no, you're preaching to the choir on that one.
He's had like a losing record in like 9 of 12 seasons. I think that's correct. I'd have to double check the numbers, but there's nothing special about Ron Rivera. And he is not going to, I mean, short of like a 12 or 13 win season, which is like double their Vegas win total at this point, he's not surviving into 2024, in my opinion. Maybe I'm reading the room wrong, but I just don't see a team with Sam Howell navigating its way through the NFC East and making a playoff run to save Ron's job. But maybe I'm crazy.
No, I don't think, at least not on that one. You know, there's some other stuff y'all have done over the years that has me asking questions. By the way, you are correct and can confirm, because I put $20 on the over when I was out in Vegas a couple weeks ago. It's 6.5, which feels low.
Yeah, I mean, like for a team that generally wins 7 or 8 games under Ron's stewardship, it does seem low. But if this team gets off to a slow start, they've got Buffalo and Philly in the first 4 weeks. They have to go out to Denver in week 2. Like, if they don't get off to a 2-2, 3-1 start, it could get ugly early here.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I feel like this is the last thing I'll ask you, Cakes, on the way out. And then, we'll recap real quick about what we're going to do on Thursday. But on the football front, like, they were 8-1 last year. And I feel like they're a better football team this year, in large part due to Bieniemy, because I tend to think that the scheme is going to elevate a lot of different parts of this team that struggled last year. Do you think, just going into the year, roster, coaching staff, et cetera, are they a better team than they were last year?
I think they are better. I think that a lot of that depends on Chase Young being motivated, to try to get that big, gigantic contract that we know he's seeking. Not picking out that 5th-year option, I'm sure is burning him inside, that he wants to prove to people that it should have been picked up. So I think a healthy Chase should help with that. And I think adding to the secondary with the first 2 picks with Forbes and Martin should help out a pretty strong defense already. It all hinges on Sam Howell. Can Sam Howell be the 20th or 21st best quarterback in the league? If he can do that and distribute the ball efficiently to McLaurin, Dotson, get the tight ends more involved. And look, we know the name of the game in the NFL in 2023. You have to score. You can't go out and win 19, 17 games. Like that. That's just not going to get it done. If the enemy's influence on the offense has this team scoring 23 to 25 points per game with the defense they've assembled, then you could be working with something here. But if this team is scoring 18 or 19 points per game with the enemy at the helm of the offense, then it just seems like they're spinning their wheels. Yeah,
no, I think that's well put. All right, Johnny Cakes Auville, co-host of the Sports Junkie, 6 to 10 each and every morning here on the Team 980. And then we'll be front and center for Burgundy and Sold, our party on Thursday. As soon as the votes pass, doors will open to the bullpen at 4:30. I got to still do my show, Cakes. I'm sure you'll be on it. You and some of the guys will stop by. What are you guys planning for Thursday, your part of the celebration?
I mean, like you said, we'll be guesting on some of the shows that are broadcasting from there. We'll be up on the stage, like introducing the bands and some of the special guests that are there at the bullpen. But look, like you touched on, it's a big party and a celebration and a release/relief for all the people that have suffered watching the Dan Snyder-owned Washington football team /Commanders, all the names that they've been called over the years, flailing in the standings and, usually coming in either last place or third place in the NFC East. It's time to blow off steam and accept the new ownership and wave bye-bye to Dan on his way out. And I think it'll be cool, too, that we'll be hanging with all the guys from 980. People from WPTC will be there. People from The Drive will be there. It'll be a good chance for, we don't get to hang out a lot because of all the differing day parts. And I wake up at 4 in the morning. You have a way different schedule than I do, et cetera. So it'll be cool for all of us to kind of get together, hang out, and raise a glass or two and celebrate. Dan Snyder's not going to be in our lives any longer.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Yeah, if you and I see each other at work, something's typically gone terribly wrong. One of us has had a bad schedule day.
Yeah, something has gone really awry. That means that, like, I fell asleep on the couch in the green room, or something weird happened.
Yeah, so we get to see each other on purpose on Thursday. So looking forward to that. Appreciate you coming on the show. We'll definitely do it again. And I'll see you on Thursday, buddy. Have a great weekend.
Excellent, man. Thanks for having me on, and I'm looking forward to it. And I mentioned on the Junk Show today, whoever came up with the Burgundy and Sold, that's a great name for the party. It's perfect. That person should get a bonus. So Burgundy and Sold, 4:30 on Thursdays when the doors open at the Bullpen. I'm looking forward to hanging with you, Craig, and hopefully Anthony isn't $100 in the hole by the time I get there.
Yeah, God, he hasn't picked up. Luckily, he doesn't commit finable offenses that often. Otherwise, he wouldn't even have the opportunity to get fined anymore. He would have just been gone by now.
Right.
So
right.
there's
All right.
that.
Thanks, man. Have a good weekend. Thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah, you got it. Johnny Cakes, Auville, everybody. Of course, the Sports Junkies are 6 to 10 each and every morning here on the Team 980 over on 106.7 The Fan, and you can watch them on NBC Sports Washington. Listen live as well on the free Odyssey app, where you can listen to us each and every day, 4 to 7 as well. 980 AM, 106.7 HD2. And if you want to watch our show, we're not on television, but we are on, we basically are. What's the difference between cable TV and YouTube these days? It depends on which app you open on your smart TV. That's how we all consume it anyway. So just go to YouTube, subscribe to the Team 980, and we are on each and every day, 4 to 7, streaming live right there. When we get back here on the Hoffman Show, Clinton Yates joins us to talk about the Roger Goodell, Dan Snyder relationship, and whether as Snyder exit, Goodell could be in trouble in his wake. That's next here on the Team 980. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Streaming live on YouTube, youtube.com/@theteam980 each and every day from 4 to 7. Every Friday, it is our pleasure to be joined by my good friend, Clinton Yates. Yates, where in the world are you? You're back at home in California this week?
Yeah, I am in West Covina, California, because my radio station is having a celebrity, air quotes, softball game this weekend, and I will be playing shortstop and batting first, sir.
As you should be. I mean, come on.
Well, I mean, we'll see what happens. It's a fun deal that we do, though. All the people that are members, on-air participants of the station, we all get together and split up teams, and a lot of people come out, man. We had like 2,000 people come out last year. It was really something.
That's dope. We should do that.
Yeah.
We should do that.
Hey.
I haven't. We did one of those when I worked in Dallas, and I only got one at bat, and I lined out to third. And I was like, basically, the girl that was playing third, all due respect to her, I hit the ball so hard into her glove that it closed. There's it's one of those non-optional type of things. Yeah. She didn't move.
Beam. Yeah, sure. Big time laser beams from Gregory Hoffman.
I hit 4 out in BP. Get at me.
Okay.
2 righty, 2 lefty. Right. What you got now?
Wow. Okay. Bat and switch, too. Can we get to the topic at hand here instead of your meager softball coach?
Yes. Yes, we can. All right. So the topic at hand is the story that your colleague at ESPN, Don Van Natta, wrote earlier this week about the relationship between Roger Goodell and Dan Snyder in regards to the John Gruden emails. And I focus in on the Snyder-Goodell part because that was the part to me, Clinton, that stuck out of how involved Snyder was in his own punishment and how they had this blackball PowerPoint and it worked. Is that the same part of the story that stuck out to you?
I think the part of it to me was just how in-depth all of this really was. I mean, how do I explain this, Craig? And I'm going to ask this question sort of rhetorically and then get into it, but how much do people really actually care about this back and forth? And that's no knock on DBN. It's something that I wonder because once that story got way into the weeds about who's leaking what, who's got emails here and there, who knows who, and who's related to what, I was just like, oh, my goodness. Everybody here seems like a despicable human being, no matter what their involvement is. And I think that there's a lot of NFL fans who are casual fans of this league who read that and understand, this is pretty much what I expected. Everybody's kind of in cahoots. Everybody's operating on CYA. Dan is clearly got stuff on other owners. The most interesting part to me was obviously the blackmail PowerPoint, again, that was what was assumed and that was what was real. And it's kind of awkward to look at it and have it be like exactly what you thought it was is exactly what happened. And that to me was just very strange and almost, I don't know, it's like a movie where you feel like you've already seen it before, but you don't know the end yet. And it felt slimy in and it felt slimy on the way out too.
So substantively, it's going to matter a lot because the Gruden emails are the thing that is the greatest threat to the league probably right now in terms of embarrassment because, man, if more stuff comes out of that and the details and different people have, whether it's more racist emails, homophobic emails, just off-color language, and John Gruden does not look like a man who wants to settle. He wants to burn the thing down. But coming out of it more immediately is this confirmation that, we all know Goodell works for the owners, but he works for them like that? Is how much power he ceded to Snyder something that is actually empowering for Goodell because other owners know they can get that too? Or is that potentially damaging to Goodell because of the extreme lack of judgment?
Well, it speaks to the nature of the job and what the nature of being in the NFL is. I'm not really sure how much I'm blaming Goodell, if that makes sense, in the regards that he's doing his job and trying to protect the greater interest of everybody. Unfortunately, Dan Snyder's the guy that had him, by the short hairs, for lack of a better term. And, Goodell is in a bad position. It is not a good gig to be representing NFL owners when the larger part of NFL owners are billionaires. You do not become a billionaire by being a nice person or being somebody that operates ethically. Sorry, everybody out there. I mean, that's kind of where I am on this. I'm not going to say I'm sentimental to Goodell, but that's what the money's for, as they say. You're making a bunch of cash because everything you're doing, for the most part, is largely operating on the margins of what ethics are in professional sports. And I think that there's going to be a big reckoning when people start to realize none of these humans are doing anything that's all that reputable outside of putting a team on the field that a lot of Americans like to root for. So, the internecine battles between whether or not Goodell ceded too much to Snyder, I mean, yeah, on the surface, but at the same time, what exactly was supposed to happen here? Was he just supposed to risk everybody getting exposed? I don't know the answer to that. But again, I don't make $33 million a year either. So
Neither does he. He makes 64.
Oh, sorry. I forgot that he re-ups. My bad. I cut him in half, whatever it may be. Again,
that's so much money.
And that's the kind of money that helps you sleep at night when you're operating and doing the bidding of humans like those that run NFL franchises. And I'm not trying to be some, bad-mouthing anybody, but I feel like the bloom was off the rose a long time ago in terms of us realizing Snyder's not the only one that operates in a way that people don't enjoy. He's just the one that does it on his front porch and front lawn. That's the difference.
Well, yeah, I think there's a discussion to be had about, like, I know a lot of owners doing bad stuff. I don't know how many are doing stuff worthy of multiple federal and congressional investigations. Like, where's the line? And then also here's the other thing that I'm not like push back and like I disagree with you. Just like more food for thought, right? Is the idea that he's just supposed to eat it for the owners and do what's quote unquote best for the owners. To me, if I'm an owner, I'm saying, buddy, I'm paying you $64 million to have some judgment here. And at some point, you should pull the plug on this guy. Like, what's best for 31 of us is not what's best for him. You work for all of us, not him. And I think that's where it gets tricky is like, do they not want to set a precedent? Like, what are the reasons why the other 31 went along with this?
Yeah, that's a good question. I also thought, like, the whole sort of genesis of how Jay-Z even got involved seemed to be very strange to me. We need help. And therefore you go to Jay-Z. I'm still not sure beyond, the play-by-play of what actually occurred, why that occurred. Jay-Z didn't do anything that actually helps the image-wise. And quite frankly, as a member of the black community and a hip-hop fan for a long time, it was kind of like, yo, Jay, what you doing? You know what I mean? Like, why are you even involved in this? And it seemed like a bit of a cash and power grab from somebody that was in a visible position that helped truly nobody except for those at Rock Nation. And that's not a knock on them. Get your paper, I guess. But I still am not really clear on why that was a relationship whatsoever outside of a very ham-handed attempt to just stick the most famous black person you can in front of the cameras and hope that people, for some reason, deflect away. That was very, very poorly done. But you're right. Goodell could have exercised a little bit more judgment and got spooked by a guy who clearly, I think, spooks a decent amount of the owners as well. And that's kind of what I'm saying here. The owners are plenty available to say whatever they like about this guy, and they don't. I get that the money's for him, but he's representing a lot of different interests, and it just feels like everybody's trying to make sure that they're the ones who don't get caught holding the bag in terms of PR and public opinion right now.
No, for sure. What Jay-Z did, he took a lot of white people's money. That he definitely did.
There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you know what I mean? It just was so weird to think that that's really all this was. Truly,
it was Robert Kraft's idea. Like, you go to the 70-year-old white billionaire for the how to fix the race relations problem?
Not gonna work, man. I don't know that he comes out looking any better for this, for Kraft, Jay-Z, anybody. And this was just. You talk about dirty laundry. That's what DVN, my homie, does well. This was the dirtiest laundry I think I've pretty much ever seen in the NFL, outside of interior squad stuff with the Washington football team, which is, of course, terrible, illegal, and awful.
Yeah, Clinton Yates with us from ESPN, of course. Was on Around the Horn today, so if you missed it at 5 o'clock, it'll replay. It might be replaying right now. That's how that works throughout the day. Yeah. So make sure you catch him there. Read his work. Oh, Anthony just got up out of his chair. Apparently, it is rerunning right now. Is that on ESPN or ESPN2? Anthony, what are you watching there? He literally just got out of his chair, Clinton, and ran up and pointed to your face on the television screen.
Okay, so you talked about instituting a fine system.
Yeah.
There needs to be an opposite of that. If you get up and make a physical motion towards the guest on television at the time, that's an anti-fine. That's a merit. That's not a demerit.
Okay,
so Anthony's got a plus there.
So Anthony might start at 0 after all. After yesterday, he basically quit the show 5 minutes before it ended and just stopped doing his job well. This was the other thing that we needed your help on. We need to finalize this fine system. I have a whiteboard to keep track of it. We're going to hang it up in the studio. We have some things that like this fine system. I'm stealing pieces of many other fine systems. Levitard has a good one on his show. So you cough into a microphone, it's a $5 fine. We're stealing that because Anthony does it once a month. We got to find a way to nip that in the bud. Both of us edit a lot of sound for the show, and sometimes we mess that up. Me more than him, frankly. So
all right.
that's a $5 fine. If I call for a soundbite and it's not ready, that's a $5 fine. Not being ready to actually do the show.
Fine.
$5?
Fine. $5 a pop. I mean, these things add up. You're working in radio here, buddy. I was thinking you were going to be on the dollar on up to like food items or drink items as opposed to just monetary value. But I'll take it. Y'all are balling over there. That's fine by me.
This is why we're bringing you into this. We need an outside counsel on our fine system. What other things should we be considering? And are we being too ham-handed here?
Okay, so $5 should be the heaviest fine there is outside of, cussing and getting to the dump. Dollar fines mean they're more likely to be paid and they're more likely to create content that you can talk about because they won't actually stop anybody from doing anything. It'll just be annoying enough that you have to pay $1 every time. Now, the other thing is this, ideas for things that should be finable. If there are catchphrases that you go to too often and you find yourself using them a lot, you can identify them between the two of you, boom. That might be a $2 fine. That might be a little bit something more, a la the banned words on Around the Horn. There's certain things you can't say or else we get the X and get muted. Like I think narrative is on there. Elite is on there. There's a couple words on the banned words list where it's like, dude, we hear these words too often. You're getting pops if you say them. That is what I would add to it on top of additions to the, on top of merits for doing good things.
That is good. I like that. I like the merits. So just in terms of the money itself, basically when it gets to, this is the last piece that we have to put together. We have to pick the number. But when it gets to whatever number we're going to decide here, we then buy lunch, and it's just who contributes what. So it's not like there's a pot of money sitting in the middle of the table. We work in radio. Someone would steal our money. So it's just a matter of like, okay, let's say I accrued, let's say the number's $50. I accrued 40 of it. Anthony accrued 10. He Venmos me $10. I order us lunch.
That's not a bad idea. I actually don't hate that. If it's sort of a pooled system, if you're sharing, broadcast revenue rights and incomes, then that makes sense. I've just felt like $5, you can get to spending a lot of money really quickly if you're getting very, punitive about the fine.
How bad do you think the show is?
I don't know, man. I mean, you said that he just the other day almost quit the show, and he does it all the time. I know what I do all the time. I cough into mic, maybe not all the time. I try to use the cough button, but sometimes the cough button doesn't work, and it's still heard over the mic, even though you're not doing it into the mic. There's gradations here.
No, I think I would excuse that. That would be an appealable fine. Yeah.
All right.
My favorite thing is when Anthony hasn't been talking on the show for a while. I bring him in on a segment. He cracks his mic and then clears his throat into the microphone.
I actually kind of like that. That's
automatic kind of $5 fine, and that's not negotiable. I don't care if that's the heaviest one we do. That's a $5 fine, and I'm not backing down on that.
So am I at 0?
Cool with Gregory Hoffman. What? You're at 0 now because you went and pointed to my face on the television. So it's giving Craig something to talk about in the middle of the segment. If you create content opportunities within other content opportunities, that should be a bonus, especially from content that is not what you're creating. It's what somebody on the phone is creating.
So we have a merits and demerit system. I like it. Thank you for your service, Clinton Yates.
Always, sir.
All right.
Have a good weekend, buddy.
You too. See ya. That's Clinton Yates, everybody, with us here on the Hoffman Show. We get back. It is our weekend preview. the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube, youtube.com/@theteam980. Coming up at the top of the hour, we continue our rankings series. Well, I guess it's not really rankings. It's our question that we've been asking every day. Who is the best player on X team for the 21st century? We've gone division by division. Today, we are going to do the division of the team of my youth. We are going to do the NFC South. So that's coming up at the... Are we doing that at the top of the hour, Anthony, or 6:15? Are we doing Take Command? What are we doing?
6:15.
6:15. Okay, and then Take Command coming up at 6. So we'll do that. Then Richard Deitsch is good to join us at 6:30, so looking forward to talking to RD then. Right now, though, weekend preview, and it is actually the lightest weekend of the sports calendar. WNBA is on break. NWSL is on break. There's a big MLS thing. We'll get to that in a second. Baseball is back, so you have that back on the schedule. Games actually start tonight. You have the Nats in St. Louis for the weekend. You know what's crazy, Anthony? The Cardinals have barely a better record than the Nationals. The Cardinals are 38-52. The Nationals are 36-54. Nats win 2 of 3 this weekend. They have a better record than the St. Louis Cardinals.
Wow.
Yeah. Didn't know that, did you?
I did not.
By the way, there are also 3 teams that are worse than the Washington Nationals this year. Can you name them?
Worse?
Worse.
I mean, I can guess a couple of teams, and I will start with the Chicago White Sox.
The White Sox are tied in the loss column, but have 2 more wins. So they technically are better at this point, but they've also played more games.
The Twins.
The Twins are... No, the Twins...
I'm striking out. Oh,
the Twins
the Marlins.
No.
I'm not going to get it.
No. Where are the Twins on this list? Where did they go? Oh, they're in the middle of the pack. They're 45-46. The Rockies are a couple games worse, 2.5 games worse. The Royals are having a royally bad season. And then the Oakland Athletics are having the season from hell.
See, I wanted to say the A's, but I know they were trajecting, I guess, upward a couple of years ago.
No.
I guess they...
No. Everything is falling apart. Everything is falling apart. Their fans are so mad because they're leaving, and their baseball team is terrible. They are 36.5 games under 500. And get this, they have a run differential this year of -248. The second worst team in baseball is the Royals at -155. It's almost 100 runs worse.
268?
248. 248. Almost, it's 93 runs worse.
That's good. That's good math. Quick math.
Yeah, it was 100 -7.
Okay, it's still quick though.
Yeah, I crushed that. They are 4-6 in their last 10 though. They got that going for them.
That's pretty good.
Which is nice. Of course, the Braves leading baseball at 60-29 on the season. They are hosting the White Sox this weekend. Phillies have the Padres. Miami is at Baltimore. The Mets are hosting the Dodgers. So you got baseball back in action all weekend long. Huge MLS weekend. The All-Star game is here in D.C., right around the corner. All-Star weekend is here. And at 8 o'clock on Sunday night, it is anticipated that is when Lionel Messi will be announced as a member of Inter Miami. So while him actually playing is still a little bit off, and not that far off at this point, but after the All-Star break, obviously, he will finally officially be announced. Now, he hasn't signed the contract yet, but Anthony, did you see that he was out and about just grocery shopping in Publix like a regular dude this weekend?
I did see that, and he wasn't being swarmed, and he's probably happy about that.
I would imagine so. I wonder if that's part of the reason he wants to come to America, where he's just like, yeah, I'm not going to be quite as famous over there. Or do you get to the point, like if you're in Barcelona and you're there forever, could he go grocery shopping? Like, I don't know. I would tend to think not. There's no way, right? Like, I don't know. And also, like, he's so, like, what does he need to go grocery shopping for? He might have gone grocery shopping in Miami because he's bored and doesn't have anything to do yet.
Yeah.
Why is Messi going grocery shopping for himself? He's not cooking. He's got to have a personal chef.
What if he is a chef?
Maybe he enjoys cooking.
Exactly.
But I still, even if, because like I enjoy cooking. If I was mega rich, I'd have a personal chef. They would do my grocery shopping. And occasionally it might be like, hey, Chef Jean-Pierre, bonsoir, you have the night off.
Probably hasn't had time to really go out and look for a really good chef.
Maybe he just wanted a pub sub. Maybe he wanted the Publix fried chicken.
Man.
If you know, you know.
Yes, if you know, you know.
Where's the closest Publix to here?
I don't think there is one.
There's one that's got to be the closest. It's just
Okay,
how
that's
far
fair.
away is it?
Miles.
That's the question. Yeah. Anthony, you're not helping. Not findable, but you're not helping. Publix, near me. No, we don't want Whole Foods. We don't want Harris Teeter. All due respect. Where's Embry Milltown? Directions.
South Carolina.
No, it's in Virginia.
Is it Publix that close?
Stafford.
Oh, wow.
Okay, there's a Publix. I don't know if it's quite within our listening area. Because our listening area is a little stronger north towards Maryland than it is south. But like it's in the fans listening area down there in Stafford. I've been caught in traffic in Stafford driving to Richmond and still could get our station. Yeah. Okay, there you go. If you want a pub sub, you got to go to Stafford. If you're in Stafford, congrats. You can go get a pub sub. Other than that, WNBA All-Star this weekend is obviously a good time. The skills competition just went down. Kelsey Plum and Chelsea Gray from the Aces won. And then Sabrina Ionescu put on a show. Literally the best three-point shootout performance in modern history, if ever. I don't remember what Larry Bird's number was in the famous one where he never took off his warm-up and walked into the locker room and asked who was finishing second beforehand and then went out and smoked everybody. But Sabrina missed 2 shots the entire time. She had 37. All the money ball rack, straight cash. She hit 20 in a row between the last ball on the first ball on the first rack and the money ball on the 4th of 5 racks. They also have the starry balls, the deep shot. She hit both of those. Bananas.
Water.
Yeah.
Whew. I'm not gonna lie. I was watching it while you were talking to
Clinton.
To Cakes.
Oh, to Cakes?
Yes. Yeah. I had my back turned to you.
I saw it on Twitter during that break and watched it real quick, and I was like,
man, it was crazy.
Damn.
I had to tweet it out.
That was nuts. So congrats to Sabrina. All-Star game for the W tomorrow night. Anything else going on this weekend? It's on the radar. Summer League. Wizards are playing right now. Saw Bilal Coulibaly made a couple of plays. Johnny Davis hit a 3. Just seeing this stuff fly by on Twitter.
Yeah, they're cooking right now. They're up 11 right now.
Okay, there you go.
4th.
Nice. Wizards are having a nice little summer league.
Oh, you know what I'll be watching?
What do you be watching?
Wimbledon. Every morning this week, Craig.
You've been locked in?
I have been locked in. I watched both matches earlier, and it's gonna be a fantastic final on Sunday.
Sinner Djokovic in the men's side, right?
It wasn't even close. No. It's
or that
Djokovic
was the semi
versus
Alcaraz. That kid's awesome.
Yep.
That's gonna be fun. Who wound up making it on the women's side? I didn't catch the results.
On the women's side, Jabeur.
Yeah.
She won, and I didn't see who played. I didn't see who won the second match.
Let me see real quick. That was the doubles today. Vondrousova.
Yes. That's exactly
Vondrousova.
Yep.
Beats Svitolina. Straight set, 6-3, 6-3. Yeah. Jabeur pulled the upset on Sabalenka. So, yeah, you got that coming up. That's tomorrow. The women's finals tomorrow morning.
And then
Alcaraz,
Jokic.
Djokovic on Sunday. Cool. Formula One's off this weekend. They got one more race before the summer break. And that pretty much covers it. That's our weekend preview. So now you know what's going on. And if you don't like any of that stuff, you can watch Quarterback on Netflix. There's some other stuff that's about to start coming out. We're getting into TV show season, which you might as well enjoy it now. And you might as well enjoy your reality television because there ain't going to be no TV for a long time with this actors and writers strike. Hey, billionaire studio owners, maybe you take a small pay cut and give millions of dollars for your employees. That could potentially solve the problem. I don't know how any of this stuff works. That just seems like math to me. All right, when we get back here on the Team 980, how did it all fall apart in 2012? There's been a lot of theories that have been thrown around, but Jordan Rodrigue talked to Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay and Robert Griffin for her series, The Playmakers. You got to hear her perspective on this next here on the Team 980. It's the final hour of the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Coming up later in the hour, Richard Deitsch joins us to talk about the future of sports on television. Just a small little topic we're going to squeeze into 12 minutes. Huge news out of Disney this week around ABC and ESPN and the future there. So we will talk to Richard about it coming up in just a little bit. But right now, Anthony, you got the email, right? We're all good to go. Excellent. Nobody gets fined. We are going to play for you a little bit of Take Command from our most recent episode. Jordan Rodriguez did the series The Playmakers, and it's about Kyle Shanahan. It is about Sean McVay. It is about all the coaches that were here for that magical stretch. And while most of it focuses on kind of what they've done since and how their offense has evolved, and it's about them, and it's about the schemes, and it's about all that stuff, they do spend some time at the end of the first episode talking about what happened here when it all went wrong. Now, Jordan's done a lot of interviews around this series. Rarely has she done one with someone who was there when that all went down. Of course, Logan Paulson is my co-host on that. And for those that don't know, Logan played 10 years in the league and was on that 2012, was a starter on that 2012 Washington team. So here is our chat with Jordan about the end of things in Washington and how all the participants saw it at the time and since. I'll ask both of you this. What do you think is the most important factor in the ascent of that 2012 team, whether it be schematic, human, whatever it is? And then let's start there, and then we can get into the falling apart and kind of the trickle down effect of that, because that to me is like a pretty fascinating part of the series that goes a little untouched, because for the purpose of what you were doing, it was not the most important thing, but I'm sure there's more to say about it. So what is the biggest factor in them being able to figure out how to ascend that 2012 team to the heights that it got to?
I'm sure, Logan, you can expand like so much more on this, but conflict, I think, was the defining factor and the most important one. And conflict in its many, many definitions, not just the bad one that we think about, but also the one that helps create and helps inspire in many ways. The fact that they were fighting with each other in ways subtle and non-subtle to get calls on Kyle's play sheet automatically sets a foundation that is very, very different from most professional or personal friendships that people have in their lives. And I think, but that also creates a very specific environment that is painful and difficult and stressful, but also fosters and creates, I think, evolution. And it kind of, like I say, in series, it has since the dawn of time. And so if you're applying that to a football building, what does it look like? And there was some intentionality from Mike Shanahan to do that. He also was someone who, like Kyle, never really let you know where you were at. You had to show your work, but you might not ever get a reaction to it. And so that continues to, it's a psychological effect almost, where you're louder and louder and louder and louder about your ideas and what you believe. And then that clashes with other people, collides with other people. And then, all of a sudden, out of all of that fighting and all of that noise, here comes this other idea, obviously combining it with some truly gifted players at that time is such a concoction that I think is unique and very rare in the NFL's historical arc. And when you're sustaining at that high of a level, I mean, it's like that vibration is so high and so intense, something will shatter, right? And that's kind of, to me, and when I'm looking at it from someone who wasn't there, that's kind of like what it all felt like to me, kind of looking in from on the outside.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like probably a good understanding of like the coaching staff and a good representation of what was going on there. But like I guess it's probably the football background, like I appreciate that. I mean, that's how the players are treated every single day, and that's how the coaches, like, pressure builds diamonds, and I like that mentality. I like that focus. And I think when you look at that team, it's very similar, honestly, to like what Kyle's done multiple places he's been. It's like an under talented roster outside of a couple really big names. Like you look at the receivers, like Josh Morgan, Pierre Garçon, before he became like that guy. Like I was a starting tight end on that team. I'm like, I'm not a good football player. You know what I'm saying? Like guys that really understood schematically what the emphasis was, did what Kyle wanted to do, and then like played really hard, and then were able to intellectually handle kind of some of the innovation they were bringing in from the coaching side. And I think the biggest thing, in my opinion, like this is my opinion, like there's probably, talking to different people get different answers, is I don't think Robert specifically understood how much the scheme was elevating him. You mentioned Kyle or Sean wanting to kind of follow this kind of meteoric rise and ascent. And I remember Robert saying, I want to be a pocket passer. I want to do stuff like Peyton Manning does. I want to do stuff like Tom Brady does. And he just wasn't there yet, and then couple that with the injury. And then there was a change in kind of how we did some stuff from like a fundamental standpoint in terms of blocking some of the quarterback run stuff for him that eliminated explosive runs. And I think it just made that, like you mentioned this in the piece, like explosive plays, they lead to touchdowns. And so when you take away 50% of your explosive plays via runs and obviously play action, because defenses can play you differently because the runs are less effective, I think it was like this cascading effect. And, it's spatial Darwinism, right? I remember being in games and like one of the specific coaching points for Robert was like, don't cut inside on like a Grizz or a bear block. And that's where the big slash is, right? Because the safety's in conflict, the linebacker's going to push wide and try to force it back. And there's a big hole there, but you can't do that. And linebackers got faster and they figured that out. And they would just sprint to the sideline and Robert would sprint to the sideline with them and we get a 3-yard gain. And then you're in 2nd and 7 and we weren't equipped to handle that down in and down out. So I think it was, again, kind of a regression of the offense and what made it great. And I think a lot of that has to do with personalities, like player to coach personalities, and obviously coach to ownership, I think was another factor there as well. So,
yeah. And how those three interplayed and kind of eventually became two opposing sides, the coaches on one, the quarterback and the owner on the other. And that's a power dynamic that is difficult to navigate, to say the least. There's a quote in there from Robert where he says, I wish there was someone there to protect me from myself. And I think that is one that is going to upset a lot of Washington fans, not because they agree with him, but because they look at him as the guy who was all in for week 1 and, refused to take himself out of games. And obviously there was all the stuff with Dr. Andrews that you chronicle in the piece as well. I'm curious now, like removed from it, what your reflections on kind of that injury portion of Robert's story is and how the other coaches that you talked to for this piece interplay with that. And Logan, also what your recollections were of the LCL injury first and then the ACL and ultimately the all-in for week 1 in 2013 and what a disaster that turned out to be.
Yeah, I'll say from my perspective, for me, I knew that not having been there, it was going to be so complicated of a topic because again, and Logan, you said it, like it depends on who you ask, know, and it was the whole story of those 2 years, 12 and 13 in Washington. Again, that could be its own series, I think, because it was so complicated. And my ultimate goal in presenting the way that we did, and then also the voices that we did, was the reminder that there is always a duality, right? Because you are listening to someone who experienced what ended up being sort of a life-changing injury and talk about how he felt about that. But you're also hearing Kyle Shanahan's voice, and you're hearing him sort of allude to the split between the front office and the coaching staff and the lack of support. He says it very quickly, but he says it, the lack of support and then the perception of his dad. And he's at that time, he's reading and seeing everything. And, he's a kid, right? And this is like pre-Twitter, right? So this is how he's getting his news. He's reading about it and he's seeing this, but he's got a personal tie to the situation, obviously, but then he's trying to not have the personal tie and just make it about football, but then he starts hating football. But at the same time, an athlete, a player is going through something. And also at the same time, an entire team is going through something. And an entire team is watching maybe this thing that they had slip through their fingers. There's such a duality there. And that was what we wanted to present, because it's very clear that it depends on who you ask, and I'm sure you can attest to that.
Yeah, and I don't really know like what to say, because I don't want to be putting people out there, putting people under the bus, obviously, because it was a very complicated time. I don't know. It's frustrating. I think speaking from personal experience, I remember leaving the 2012 season thinking I'm going to be playing in Washington for 10 years. like the way this offense is going, the way Robert's playing, like my life will forever be changed, right? And obviously that's not how it went. I think a lot of people, a lot of players on that team felt that way. And, I think it was tough hearing Robert talk, because I like Robert, like we get along all right. He's got his quirks like anybody else. But I think the thing that I felt was like, you need someone to look out for you, no doubt. But also like there should be an element of like personal responsibility, I thought too. Like it's that weird kind of juxtaposition with those two things where it's like, yes, you need someone to help you out, but also like I need to be smart for myself. And he was young, and like I don't really fault him because I felt the pressure that he talked about in that to play and be out there. But it would have been interesting to get more of a perspective from, Robert's voice is very strong in that section. Just get some voice from other people, and I'm sure that they were not very open about that because I've talked to people about it, and they know they feel very strongly one way or another about it. So I'm sure that, and those are also very personal opinions about that. And so it's just it was a tough deal for everybody, and it's really tragic for multiple reasons. But like that's like when you said something earlier, like football will chew you up, and that's what happened that year for that team.
Yeah, and like you said, that is so personal, right? And for me, in lieu of respecting how hard it was and is for people to talk about it, and I can see how hard it is even for you right now to talk about it. Right. And so for me, it's like I'm not going to narrate over. I'm going to say that it's so complicated and try to present as much duality as I can. But I'm never going to, as a narrator or a writer of the series, insert things that I'm speaking for other people, sure. because right. Everybody, like, it's so, you say the word tragic, like I felt that. You feel it, and it is a defining ache, I think, in a person's life, to have been on those 2 years of those teams. And that's probably as strong as I'll maybe say it, is like, I know, and I hear, and I heard, I don't know because I didn't live it, but I can hear and feel that it was a defining ache in a lifetime, to be a part of those two teams.
Yeah. And I will say, as someone who talks and interacts with the fan base every single day, fans that were fans back then, they feel that ache as well. And it's different, I think, when you're a participant versus someone rooting from the outside. But the emotional investment in the sport and the team is why we all have jobs. And that should also not be understated, the ache and kind of the tragedy within the realm and scope of football that the fan base felt at that time too, having their hopes and dreams of a decade of success ripped away, even if it wouldn't have come with the same decade of paychecks that you would have gotten, Logan, had that played out the way you thought exiting the building in 2012. All right, that is from Take Command, which you can listen to on your favorite podcast platform. Watch full episodes on YouTube as well at 1067 The Fan. When we get back here on the Team 980, we will debate the best player of the 21st century for each team in the NFC South, continuing our series. And then Richard Deitsch joins us at 6:30.
DC has a new home for...
the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. All right, each day over the last week, we have asked who is the best player in the 21st century on each of the teams in a particular division. This started with Chris Sims doing this for the Commanders and possibly other teams. We just saw it on Twitter. But we started doing it, had some fun, thought, all right, let's keep rolling. Today, the NFC South. This one's hard. It's really easy for two teams, but two teams are really, really hard. Let's quickly go through the easy teams. The New Orleans Saints is, Anthony, stupidly easy. It's Drew Brees. He's the best player in franchise history. The Falcons, I think, is actually pretty easy. They made a Super Bowl. I think it was 2001. But it's nobody from that team, like Jamal Anderson and them. Like, they were great, but the longevity and excellence of Matt Ryan is unmatched. He was the best player on the team for a long time. Well, I guess it's one of two, actually, now that I think about it. Matt Ryan did win MVP, but Julio Jones was considered the best receiver in football, or one of the top three for a lot of that stretch. But I think for longevity's sake, consistency's sake, and for considering he won an MVP, I'd probably push it to Matt Ryan. That feels a little silly because Julio was better at his job than Matt was at his, although that one season that he won MVP, that obviously goes away. But I still think I would take Ryan.
I would take Ryan as well. He literally has like the franchise's passing record for everything. But also, I think, just playing quarterback, I don't think it's fair. Yeah. Because Julio did play alongside Matt Ryan.
Here would be my one thing. Is Matt Ryan going to make the Hall of Fame? I actually think he will. But you have to think about it, right? Is Julio a Hall of Famer?
Yes, undoubtedly.
Does that shift it to Julio?
Ooh. Dang. You put it like that. Ooh. I
don't know how you separate the two. That's the thing.
I would based off what you just said, I would probably lean Julio because he's going to be on the 20. Is he already on the 2010s All-Decade team?
He's got to be.
He's got to be. I don't think Matt Ryan is, though.
No, because there's better quarterbacks.
Yeah, it's not necessarily fair.
Yeah, at the time. Julio, yeah, he was the All-2010s team. He was a 7-time Pro Bowler, 2-time All-Pro. He had 10 years in Atlanta. I actually think it's probably Julio.
I'm leaning Julio now. I'm leaning Julio. Julio it is.
All right, Julio Jones. Sorry, Matt Ryan. Let me just quickly get the Matt Ryan numbers. Ryan, 4-time Pro Bowler, 1-time All-Pro, so Julio's got him there, but he's got that MVP. He also had a 14-year career. And he's not going to make All-Pro because Brady and Manning were playing at the same time. And then Mahomes was. Yeah, I'm going to go Julio. Sorry, Matt Ryan. I can't believe I almost punted that one away. Okay, quickly. Carolina Panthers. And then Tampa's the really hard one. Carolina, you're a little bit in the same boat. Cam Newton, MVP 2015, but the consistency over time is not really there. Because he goes more up and down, but he also is like the best quarterback in the history of the franchise. Steve Smith, incredible longevity, incredible excellence. Julius Peppers, incredible longevity, incredible excellence. This was my childhood team. Steve Smith was my absolute favorite player, and I think I'm going to give it to Steve Smith because while Peppers was better, Peppers did leave the franchise for extended periods and was excellent in other places. Smith's entire career until the very end in Baltimore is with the Carolina Panthers. And for that reason, if we're going just not the best player who played on the Carolina Panthers, it's who's the best Carolina Panther, give me the 13 years of Steve Smith, including 5 Pro Bowls and 2 All-Pros over Julius Peppers, barely.
I like it. My only question will be about Luke Kuechly.
Oh, damn it. You know what? You're right.
Shortened career.
You're right. How did I forget Luke? Why do I keep forgetting one player on every team? So Pep, 9-time Pro Bowl, 3-time All-Pro. his all-pros all came in Carolina. Sorry, no, one came in Chicago. But he did play 10 years ultimately in Carolina by the time it was all said and done. I think you're right, though. Luke Kuechly might be the best middle linebacker of the last quarter century. You know, it's only a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9-year career. But in 9 years, he made 7 Pro Bowls and 5 All-Pros. I think it's Kuechly. 5 All-Pros, that's the separator.
Did he get a Defensive Player of the Year as well?
And
he won Defensive Rookie of the Year.
Defensive Rookie of the Year. I don't think he ever won. His second year, he got Defensive Player of the Year.
Yep.
He was 3rd in 2015.
Nasty.
Made the Pro Bowl every year except for his rookie year, which is insane because he was the Defensive Rookie of the Year and led the NFL in tackles.
I'm just saying, in his shortened career,
I think you're correct. So Kuechly. Then there's Tampa. Tampa has Rondé Barber, Warren Sapp, Derek Brooks. Those are my 3 guys. John Lynch needs to be mentioned as well because he made the Hall of Fame. But dude, I think it's Derek Brooks. Brooks, actually, well, no, because some of his stuff came in the 90s. But Brooks overall, Hall of Famer, 11-time Pro Bowler, 5-time All-Pro, 2002 Defensive Player of the Year. You got Rondé, Hall of Famer, 5-time Pro Bowler, 3-time All-Pro. And then you've got Lynch and Sapp. Is there anybody else that would be considered for this?
I mean, I guess you could maybe throw Brady in there. He did lead him to a Super Bowl. Mike Evans, he has one. He's been a phenomenal, consistent receiver for them all.
I don't know that he's a Hall of Famer, though.
Mike Evans?
Yeah. Ooh. They got multiple Hall of Famers, dude.
Yeah, this is crazy.
But I think Sapp, a lot of his accolades are kind of split 90s, 2000s. He's a 4-time All-Pro guy. 3 of them come in the 2000s. Hall of Famer. Lynch, 9-time Pro Bowler, 2-time All-Pro, Hall of Famer. But Brooks has that Defensive Player of the Year in the 2000s. Sapp won it in 99. I think I'm going Derek Brooks. But shout out to Rondé Barber for playing for 850 years.
And still looking so young.
Yes, somehow.
I will go Derek Brooks as well.
Okay.
That's where I'm going.
All right, we get back. We'll talk to Richard Deitsch. What's the future of sports on television with ESPN and ABC potentially splitting? That is next here on the Team 980. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube, youtube.com/@theteam980. And it's our pleasure to welcome in the Athletics sports media reporter, Richard Deitsch. RD, how are you on this Friday?
Doing all right. Yourself?
Doing well. I only got a half hour left to show, and I get to talk to you for half of it. So, how bad can it be?
I mean, honestly, it could be a lot better, but I appreciate you putting me over there. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I almost, as I said that, I was like, well, I feel like I just gave him an opportunity here to test that theory, but we're going to move past that, move forward. I have tentatively called this segment, Richard, what's the future of sports on television? Because Disney CEO Bob Iger made some very interesting comments this week about the future of his company that will have a potentially large, almost impossibly not to have a huge impact of the future of sports on television. For those that didn't see, what did he say, and what did you make of it?
Well, first, nice of Bob Iger to take a break from renovating one of his multi-million-dollar properties to go on CNBC for one of those, traditional tough CNBC interviews. Well, I mean, Bob Iger said a number of things as it sort of pertains to ESPN, which your audience would be interested in. Sort of put out there that there's a real likelihood that they're going to need some other party to come in and create some investment for ESPN. So whether that's like a minority partnership, whether that's some kind of investment, I don't think anybody's going to buy ESPN. And Iger didn't go that far. He sort of went the other way and said, like, we think this is still an important part of the Disney portfolio. But what he put out there was the idea that someone's going to take a stake in ESPN. The real question is going to be like, what would that be? Could it be some like wealth management investment fund? Could it be like an Apple or an Amazon? Could it be, some major big money player, which is either, again, some kind of private fund or some kind of company? But the reality is, and I think this is a real reality for him, like the costs of the content of sports continue to go up. The cost of producing sports, putting sports up, continue to go up. And he's not, or ESPN is, or I should say Disney is not say ESPN, but Disney is not bringing in as much revenue as they used to be. Some of that obviously is just they haven't gotten the money post-COVID from theme parks. Streaming has cost them a fortune, and they're still not making money on that. And then just, again, go through the rest of the Disney business. I don't have their books in front of me. Obviously, nobody does. But that's the issue. I mean, the issue is that at the end of the day, Bob Iger reports to a board. He's really essentially judged by the stock price of his company, and he has to figure out ways to raise that stock price. And when it gets to ESPN, what he's looking for is probably some investment in that property. And then really the big question, of course, is, who would that be that would invest in ESPN?
So there's also the split potentially between ABC and ESPN that I think the leagues would find particularly interesting because ABC cable television, basic cable television, available over the air as well. It is available in more homes than anything else because of that. And if you're the NBA, looking at the NBA Finals, for instance, how does that move to potentially split ESPN and ABC factor into how you view them, especially if I'm not mistaken, there is a massive TV deal that is about to kick in. I think it's already been negotiated, and perhaps there was caveats in the deal to cover for that. But also the NFL is gotten back with ESPN for playoff games that they put on ABC. So how does that affect the future of these big mega deals and sports rights and ESPN ABC's ability to get them?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned ABC. See, I forgot. I'm losing my fastball. I'm like a 39-year-old quarterback trying to run a 7-7 team. So yeah, what he really did put out there was he certainly would consider selling ABC, the linear asset, which is ABC National. In terms of answering your question, the answer to that would be if they did sell it, where they sold it to. The reality would be that whoever would buy ABC linear, and honestly, I'm not sure who would buy ABC linear. I mean, I guess again, it goes back to these companies that have a crazy amount of money, Google, Apple, Amazon. Yeah, you could in theory buy a linear television network and then, put some of your stuff on there, although I feel like that could dilute your own product if people are paying to subscribe to it. But let's, whatever, play it out for a second. Mm-hmm. Those contracts are pretty ironclad. And so if Iger and company sell that, the likelihood is they would sell that to a place that would want the inventory of putting sports on ABC. I am sure that there is some kind of out clause in the event that, like, let's say the NFL or the NBA or whomever are not happy with wherever that outcome is. I'm sure that is contractually written in, but I just think business-wise, I don't think anybody's buying that asset unless they're buying the asset of what would come with the asset, which would be sports. And don't forget, keep in mind, perhaps the biggest thing that's coming on ABC is going to be the Super Bowl. They're not part of the rotation in terms of the last Disney NFL contract. And so that's obviously the most significant property that exists. So again, without knowing who would buy ABC, and I would think if that does get sold, it has to be some kind of company that's in the business of content or media. My sense is that stuff would still air on there, and you would cut some kind of, again, I'll use this word, I'm not sure if it's the right word, you'd cut some kind of licensing or sharing deal with Disney to put whatever products Disney had negotiated with the contract onto ABC. But yes, I mean, you bring up a really interesting point just in that, like, this stuff gets really legal and really tricky and certainly not the ideal for the sports leagues unless, and here's my caveat, unless it's some big money player that buys it. Then it might be really advantageous for the sports leagues.
Right. And we still have the idea of, like, who produces it. If someone else owns ABC, but it's supposed to be ESPN on ABC, is it ESPN talent? Yeah. And that's what you're talking about with the licensing and all that kind of stuff.
I would still think, I didn't interrupt you, Craig, but I would still think because of the cost of all that it would still be ESPN talent. Again, not knowing, like if I don't even want to pretend. I don't know. Like, they're not going to do this, but if, like, Walmart somehow bought ABC, like, maybe then it wouldn't be that. But, like, there's only few companies that I think even have the capital and would be interested in an ABC. And by and large, they're going to be media-centric or content-centric companies.
Right. Richard Deitsch with us here on the Hoffman Show, of course, sports media reporter for The Athletic. Great podcast as well that you can check out on all of these topics. So you then also kind of get 10 years down the line when, say, the NBA deal is up again, and it kind of gets into a major forecasting that Bob Iger is trying to do, and I'm sure you as a pundit are trying to do of, well, what is the value of linear television 10 years from now? How does, is the idea of putting the NBA Finals on Amazon Prime Video 10 years from now actually mean you're in more homes than linear television? Like, how much are people in kind of the media elite circles talking about how the public is transitioning and how they consume content and how they need to shift their business plans to sell ads and reflect that?
I mean, listen, I'm talking to the outside like, coffee shop in Toronto. I would not call myself media elite. That said, in terms of the
well,
people
you report
who are
on them. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Right, I'm not putting that on you, Richard. Come on.
Thank you. In terms of the people who are media elite, well, I mean, a lot of that's obviously going to be determined in terms of, like, who gets the deal. I don't think in this current deal, like the the NBA would basically do like an all-encompassing deal like MLS did, where, like they basically sell the entire rights to someplace like Apple and it's behind the paywall. I still think in 2023 or 2024, like, reach will matter, and I think you'll see some kind of linear component and cable component and streaming component for some of the major sports deals that comes up, and not just the NBA, but the college football playoffs, et cetera. 10 years down the line, I mean, honestly, who knows? Like, what's ultimately going to happen is, if I had to guess, there's going to be a couple of streaming services that make it and that are sort of the dominant streaming services, although, there's only a couple making money now. But I just think, like, that's probably there's so many people who subscribe to a Netflix or something like that, or Disney Plus, that, like, I just don't see those businesses folding at the end of the day. So there's a couple of streaming players, and I would think that at some point you're going to see a lot of sports, if not most of the sports, probably behind some kind of paywall. But, here's the but. As long as there's a linear television universe that exists, and I still think 10 years from now, well, maybe I'm being naive, there'll be major sports on linear TV. Like, I don't see the Super Bowl in 10 years like going away from linear TV. NBA Finals, which has always been on ABC, maybe. But again, if you were asking me to bet, I think I'd still bet on the NBA Finals being on linear versus not. And I think I would still think that, like, on a Saturday or Sunday, you would still have sports that appear on an NBC or a CBS or an ABC. But the finances right now in media are terrible. The ad market is awful. With the exception of like the big events, a lot of sports are not getting. A lot of places that put on sports are not getting the numbers they want. If I had to sort of make a prediction, it's not a really happy prediction, and it probably affects me and you as well. I just think companies that put this stuff on in particular are going to continue to cut labor, continue to cut costs, continue to cut people, pay people less money, and they're going to try to do as much as they can streamlined. That's the immediate future in the business until there's a recalibration of the dollars that these sports rights cost, and that wouldn't happen, I don't think, for another decade or so. There's too much baked in right now in terms of how much people are paying.
Yeah, it's a sad reality that unfortunately we're seeing all around us with friends and colleagues in the business all over. Obviously, ESPN just went through a bunch of cuts. Other media entities all around the country doing that as well.
Athletic.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's something else you mentioned there, though, I think is interesting. You talk about the linear TV component. I think one of the most interesting things, Richard, that I'm sure you have your eye on as well, is the couple of teams that are starting to go back to linear, that are kind of reversing the trend, and to see if all of a sudden that's successful. Do we see a reversal in how people are approaching this? And also, I think a lot of people, I know we talked about this last time, a lot of folks are getting fed up with having to have 6 different streaming services. Do we see kind of a comeback of linear television because it just is an easier product to use in a lot of ways? Obviously, it's going to depend on the cost, but I do wonder if there is that reversal maybe even winds up saving us from ourselves.
Well, yeah, I don't know if it's going to save us from ourselves, but you will see that reversal. You saw, obviously, Phoenix looks like now, as of today, in fact, that they're going to be back on. They're going to have an over-the-air component somewhere in Phoenix in addition to a streaming component. So, yeah, I think you will see, because the RSN business in so many cities essentially has cratered, that's the whole Diamond Sports bankruptcy stuff, you will see teams get out of that deal as best they can, or the deal itself sort of folds because of the bankruptcy. And I think they'll put games on over-the-air television in their market, as well as some kind of streaming component. The streaming component will cost you, though. This is where you can say, hey, are we going to get ourselves out of it? I'm not so sure, because let's just say, I'll just make this up, right? So you're in some city, your RSN is blown up, and so they'll put 30 games on like your local affiliate, which you can get with rabbit ears or something like that. But then the other 50, you have to still pay for per streaming product. You love this team, you definitely want to pay. Let's say they charge you $45 or something like that a month for that streaming product. Well, you're definitely going to do that if you're like this diehard fan, but that still means you have to subscribe to Amazon if you want to see Thursday Night Football, or you got to subscribe to Apple, let's say, if you're like a big MLS fan. So I think in those markets, partly like you'll get some free stuff, but I still think you're going to end up paying if you're one of these diehard fans. Where these teams are sort of screwed in some way is that they have to appeal to the diehard fan, because ultimately that's who pays the bills. But you have to be real careful what the price point is, because you can't price point it to the point where your diehard fans just totally turn and be like, that's it, I don't care, I'm just going to watch highlights, I don't care about the game. So that's real tricky, because that number, in terms of the price point, a lot of times is what pays the salaries of the players, of the staff, et cetera. So it's not going to be an easy fix for any of these teams. This is where the cable bundles like disruption and destruction has screwed a lot of the sports ecosystems, particularly in the NBA and MLB, because so much of the money that these teams were making was funded by that.
Yeah. Richard Deitsch with us, sports media reporter for The Athletic. Last thing quickly on the way out. You said that the Wilt Chamberlain documentary on Showtime is the best sports doc you've seen in 2023. Why?
Well, look at you! Look at you with the Dick Cavett question. You just go short and then you go why, and then you force the person to answer it, which is good. By the way, I just filibustered there. The other filibuster for me is when you say, "Hey, great question, Craig," and it gives you an extra 6 seconds.
Well, that at least we can put in a promo.
Yeah. So basically, there you go. You always get to drop. Yeah. To me, the reason why I said it was the best is because it took a subject that you think you know about. Will Chamberlain, one of the greatest NBA basketball players, one of the most iconic figures in sports history. Obviously, this 7-foot giant of a man, larger than life, and they offer a really good reevaluation of who he is and everything about him. And you come away from the doc sort of realizing he's kind of like a brilliant guy who you really didn't have a sense of, who, at least, again, this is my interpretation, was absolutely screwed by the media of the day into being tagged as a loser and a guy who can never win a championship. And you will see, as the film really, really points out, that you should look at him as a guy who was so incredibly gifted and a unicorn for his time that he took teams that really had no business being anywhere near a final and almost got them through. And then the last part is just in terms of he was just very different. He was an artist. He was he was a supporter of women's sports ahead of his time, and really goes deep into his comments about having sex with 20,000 women. Why he said that, how it was really steeped far more in his relationship with women and loneliness than anything else. So it's just if you like sort of like something smart about someone who's really, really famous, it's highly recommended for me. I thought Showtime did a great job.
I'm looking forward to watching it. Richard Deitsch with us from The Athletic. Make sure you check out not only his columns at The Athletic, but the podcast as well. Richard, always appreciate your time. Have a great weekend.
You too, man. Thanks, Craig.
All right, Richard Deitsch, everybody. And when we get back, a quick Real Things, Real People Said into real microphones. right, it's about that time. Yes, indeed. Last segment of the show, and we do not have time to listen to Rebecca Black for very long because there's like 2 minutes left. Anthony, magic button, please.
Real things.
We're not going to be sucked this year.
Real people.
11, not very good.
Said into real microphones.
You know, the culture is actually damn good.
All right, every single year this week in Lake Tahoe, as everyone's kind of on their summer break, everyone finishes the ESPYs. A lot of people are in LA anyway. They then get on their short flights to Lake Tahoe, and there is this massive celebrity pro-am golf tournament. A lot of the same guys playing it every single year. That includes Steph Curry, who loves golf, is very good at golf, but hasn't quite won the tournament yet. Here's how he was introduced today.
He's the NBA all-time leading three-point shooter, 9-time All-Star, 2-time league MVP, 4-time NBA champion, but he still hasn't won the big one, the American Century Championship. Please welcome Stephen Curry!
Hey! How did I didn't get a chance to watch the video. How did he react?
He actually laughed. It was hilarious. He laughed.
That's very funny. Very good. Hopefully, good luck to Steph. Hopefully you have better luck at this one than you did when you had to drag Clay against Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce all over that golf course in Las Vegas. As for, let's see, which are the other ones we want to do? Let's do the Darvin Ham one. So Darvin Ham was on, it's called This League Uncut. It's Chris Haynes and Mark Stein, two longtime NBA reporters. And they were talking about Mike Malone and the Denver Nuggets. And apparently Darvin Ham, coach of the Lakers, has heard enough of the man who beat him in the playoffs this year.
Mike Malone did a lot of celebrating.
Oh, wow. Bring up Money Mike, man. the Lakers daddy, right? That's what they call him now, the Lakers daddy. That's what they call him now, the Lakers daddy.
Well, I guess you could talk when you win a championship.
God bless his soul. This shit ain't over.
That's what's up.
God bless his soul.
Yikes. Do people call Mike Malone the Lakers daddy?
That's what they said at the parade.
Why?
That's what the Nuggets owner said. He said we're the Lakers daddies or something like that.
Yeah, you need to do a ring count on that one. All right. Everybody have a great weekend. We'll see you on Monday on the Hoffman Show.
Sports from our friends at Offenbachers. Don't